we've seen all this. How about we jump into the actual kitchen itself and start doing this live?
Love it. Let's do that. So here, this is actually the Mavericks Cloud user interface. This is where we drive all of the configuration changes, and I'm going to show you all the steps that I just highlighted in our whiteboarding session. So right here, we've just got a dashboard representing all of the things that are built into my particular tenant. Yours will look different. But the first step, as I'd mentioned, is creating the identity fabric. The identity fabric are those deeper, richer integration things. So in my demonstration, what I'll show you live here in a moment, we're actually going to use a SAML integration to Azure. We could have used an OADC. I use SAML. So in this case, it's just a metadata exchange. All of this information is very familiar to anybody who's worked with Azure AD before, or Okta, or any of the modern identity providers. It really gives the information to Azure to know to trust us, and vice versa, so that we know that the fabric trusts Azure to do the authentication, conditional access, maybe MFA, depending on what you're looking to do. And then vice versa, Azure trusts the fabric as a constituent in that. So that's the first integration, very simply done. Second one that we're going to pick on today is the LDAP. Sometimes we want to get additional information that doesn't natively exist in Azure. And historically, you would have to synchronize it up into the Cloud Directory in order to have Azure AD give it back to somebody in claims. We don't need to worry about that. If the data naturally wants to reside in your HR system or a directory that's on premise or wherever you need it to be, just point us to it. We do everything at the subsecond that it's needed. We do everything at runtime. But the integration to the LDAP, as you previously asked about, is just where do I find the LDAP server? How do I know where to look for users, and how do I prove to the LDAP server that I'm an authorized requester for this information? Again, very, very simple.
And so what we did there is we talked about the complexity of a previous SiteMinder policy. Sometimes they look at, customers will look at, hey, I'm moving to Azure AD, and they're trying to figure out how to replicate that into Azure. And they're like, oh my gosh, can Azure actually support all of these different complex rules that I've set up? What we're showing is we may not have to overload Azure itself as well. We could actually handle some of those at the Mavericks level here.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the Mavericks fabric is intended to be flexible for whatever your needs are. And the beauty of it is that you now can do things that previously were hard to do. So the things that are typical of a federated application where the identity provider and the application are tightly coupled to themselves, you don't have to worry about those in a fabric-based model. We can go get information. We can go externally to look for policies. We can go to an axiomatics, a threat matrix. We can go to all those things to make robust policy decisions in ways that just exceed even the modern platforms.
So cool. And so we're back to the identity fabric. The identity fabric is uniquely yours. It belongs to you as an organization. It's something you create through the process that you just showed. So we've done the IDP, we've done LDAP. What's next in the process here?
Next process is, now that we've got the fabric elements defined, now we start learning about the applications. Now this is really quick. You can invite your application owners to do this, or if you have an identity team that does it, whoever knows the information. It doesn't really matter from our perspective. They just come to our Cloud UI. And the application that I'm going to be demonstrating for you here is called Sonar. It's a header-based application. This is very common for the SiteMinder-based patterns. And the only information we really need, where's the application that I care about? If you want to do finer-grained authorization checks to do policy decisions based on going to this page versus that page, you just define what are the resources that I want to have policy driven against. And then if you have unauthorized or error pages, just for a user-friendly experience. But that's it. That's all you really need to know for this type of an application. So then, step 3, this is where the fun starts. This is where you actually stitch together the identity fabric elements and apply them to the applications that are important to you. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our deprecation pattern here. Here, we define which applications apply to this user flow. You could have multiples. I'm picking on Sonar individually. I'm going to say my authentication provider is going to be Azure, because that's how we created the identity fabric. I'm then going to go get the additional information, or potentially get information from a local directory. Could be an external cloud-hosted one just as easily. For those pages where I want individual policies to apply, now I get to model that. So here we're saying if you're coming into the root of the application, as long as you're authenticated, we're going to let you in. But if you want to go to the calendar app page, then you have to be a member of the accounting department. We'll go in runtime to the LDAP directory, and we're going to say what department is the user in, and we'll enforce that policy there. And then the last bit of it is that this application expects to consume headers. That's typical for the legacy SiteMinder-based applications.